starting off with a clean testing site because I did a practice round. So, however, I will say upon doing all this, I found out that the best thing to clean off the powder is peroxide. Alrighty, good morning or good afternoon. So to start off this video, I'm just going to ask a simple question. What's one thing we all leave behind but also take with us? Need a hint? It's one of the most widely used things in physical evidence taking, and that's fingerprints. Between the oils left behind on our hands and fingers from the little grooves that give us our own individual identification of the fingerprint. It's a commonly known fact that no two fingerprints are the same. However, they may be extremely similar, even with identical twins, where you can hardly even tell their blood type apart. They still will have completely different fingerprints. But I will be getting into all of that at a later date if the questions ever arise, and I will get on with this video. To start off with, I'm going to be putting on some of my gloves so I don't mess with the evidence at all. When picking up evidence like fingerprints, you don't want your own to get mixed in so you don't become a potential suspect. Yeah, some people aren't told that right away and they just learn on the job, but you know, who wants extra paperwork? Speaking of paperwork, this is a classification card. This is how you would record your fingerprinting with the date, crime, case number, who the potential victim is, prints lifted by, that's where your name would go, ID number, address of incident, all of that fun stuff. And either you could put it here, your lifted print, or you could put it on the back. So that is that, and I will grab our extraction site. One of the most important things that a lot of people will tend to forget about is if you have long hair, put it up, because again, you don't want your own DNA getting mixed with what you're extracting. And here is our extraction site. Just a plate. Doesn't look like there's anything on it. It's clean. Washed it myself. So let's see what evidence has to say. Is this an actually clean plate, or is it riddled with prints? Insight, tape, any type of tape works so long as it's clear. Your fingerprinting powder, which there's no specific name for it or anything like that, unless I can go into detail about that for anybody if they want me to, but generic names for it is fingerprint powder, silk black fingerprinting powder, lightning powder, as well as there is a bunch of different types of powders. Dark powder shows up best on light surfaces and vice versa with the white powders. You're also going to need your brush, which will either be synthetic or camel hair, and then Q-tips as well. Also, we can't forget gloves. These are very important. Okay, so the first thing we are going to do is we are going to take some of this powder and put it in the lid. Why we do that is just so we don't use the whole thing and we aren't dipping old fingerprints into the sterilized powder. I just had bubble wrap down because I couldn't find anything else to put the powder on. I don't know how well you can see either, but it's kind of shiny. There are several different types of powders. That's too much. There are magnetic powders. There are obviously your base powders. There are light powders, dark powders, for darkening and lightening purposes. And yeah, that's what we're going to be using. Typically you would want to use a little less, but for video purposes and speeding this along, we'll just fix that. Next up is our brush. If I can get the lid off. That's what it looks like. It's a very large open-end brush, and you can see it's quite obviously been used. And how you extract prints and even have them show up in the first place, I will show you. Alrighty, so what you're going to do is you're going to take your brush, gently just pat it into that. See that there's some on it. Let's shake a little bit off. And then what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to hold it in your hand, like either this or, because I'm not super advanced, you're going to roll it, not brush. You can see a little bit. Let me see if I can zoom in for you guys. There you go, there's some. Let's see if we can darken them up at all, because what we want is a clear print. And what you're going to do is you're just going to keep going over it like this until you get a better visual. Actually, there's a lot of prints on that. I didn't realize. It's very entertaining to me. Just going to keep going. Another thing is you're going to want light pressure. You don't want to put too much because then it could brush away your prints. I'm trying to see if there's one that's dark enough to extract. I enlisted a little bit of help from my family to put some prints on a new plate for me because those other ones were not dark enough. And I think I'll be able to get a good print or two off of this. Now, these prints aren't super dark. However, I did take a video of my first, or should I say practice extraction, so I will be showing that. Take your tape, open it about that much, give or take. And because these are very light marks and there's not too much powder, I don't need to use the cotton swabs. However, again, in my first extraction, I showed how to do that, and I will also be putting that in the video as well. So let's pick this up. Alright, so now that we have the tape ready, we're going to be taking this one, that one right there. It's the darkest one, but what you're going to do is 2 fingers like this, or should I technically say 3, and pat down. Again, not rub. You don't want to lose any of the detail. And then from there, just slowly lift up. Looks like I'm going to get a second print too. And then, oh my goodness, it's not there. So now what you're going to do with this lifted print is you're going to flip over your card, just stick it to the back. This one is a little messier than my original extraction, but you can see some of the swirls, especially right here. You can see it very well right there and see the overall direction and spirals. So, yeah. That is how you both make those invisible marks show up and how you lift them off of the object and put them on a page for evidence, forensics evidence to look deeper into. Chemists, scientists, etc. will take these marks, look at them under a microscope. Not so much with this one, they can see it pretty well, but it would still be smart to look at it under a microscope. But definitely this one here, because of how light the marks are. Actually, that shows it pretty well. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask. Once again, for further explanation, the steps that I took were putting some of the powder into a separate location to not combine old oils with sterile powder. I put the brush in the powder and then gently spun it onto the print itself, brushing in the direction of the ridges, which I don't think I quite explained, but what you saw was not only was I spinning it, but I was moving it in the same direction as the ridges. Building the powders into the ridges helps a lot as well to darken up those prints, just like shown in this one here. And then also, as you can see the fine circle around that, I cleaned it up with my cotton swab, which was also in that portion of the video. And then collecting and preservation of lifting it with tape and then putting it onto your identification card. Once again, I'm Killian, and thank you for watching this. If you have any further questions, if we're in class together, feel free to ask, and I'm sure I'll go on a hyperfixation rampage, so thank you. Yes, I put the wrong date on my first extraction card. Don't do that.